what the funny thing about retirement is? We spend all those years dreaming about having all this free time in retirement and how our days won't be so structured and committed. And then as soon as retirement comes along and we find that we have all of this unstructured time, some of us don't use it wisely. Despite my best efforts to do the exact opposite of what I just said and to make sure my days aren't wasted because I understand that the clock is ticking and my best days are limited, I still find I end up too much on my devices. And with that comes doom scrolling. Yes, I'm sad to admit that I am a doom scroller. I don't want to be a doom scroller. It's never my plan every day to become a doom scroller, but I end up looking down at my device for what I think is going to be a very short period of time before I get on with my day. And the next thing I know, it's been 2.5 hours. It's depressing. I try to make sure that I have things going on that will take me directly into my day. So I do try to create these rituals in structure, but I still find, even despite all of my intentions, that I still have too much time wasted checking out news stories repeatedly. So today's topic is going to be all about doom scrolling, why it happens, and putting in place some strategies that I think might help if you're like me and you're at least in 2026 trying to address the doom scrolling. Because let's face it, right now there's so much going on in the world and so many things that are so different in our culture that 10 years ago weren't like that at all, that it is really easy to get sucked into constantly reading all about it. And is it ever good news? Never. It is never positive stuff. It's always the negative stuff that just repeatedly comes my way. So let's chat about that. I'm Michelle at Solo and Candid Musings from Midlife. I discuss a lot of different topics that we all experience when we are over 50 years old, in my case now over 60, and experiencing retirement as well. I'm just giving my perspective from my little corner of the world and hoping that something I say is useful or practical for you, or just gives you the chance to see that you're not alone in some of the ways that you've been thinking about things lately. And if you stick around for the video at the end, I'm going to give you a link for all of the strategies to be listed that you can print off and just keep handy, either, magneted to your fridge or taped to the wall in your kitchen, just so that you can keep reminding yourself, because it takes 30 days to build a habit. So just because you put one or two in place tomorrow doesn't mean that you'll have broken that habit yet. So I'm going to do that for myself as well. So I might as well share that little checklist with you too. And hopefully you will break your doom scrolling habit. In the past, the news, although I know they've never been 100% unbiased, they certainly were a lot less biased than they are now. Couple that with the fact that a lot of the times you can get your news through YouTube. However, a lot of those shows or video clips aren't from official news shows. They're more shows directed at political commentary. And I think the lines have gotten really blurred, where a lot of people think that they're watching news, when in fact the agency that's putting out their information has never declared that they are an independent news information or a large news media outlet. They actually are considered entertainment rather than news. And the reason why I try to listen to the news or watch it every day is because I was raised to be an informed citizen. We were always taught that you need to make sure that you're looking up beyond just your own neighborhood to find out what's going on in your province, in your country. And we had a strong emphasis in Canadian education to be a global thinker as well. And I know there are many countries, the States for one of them, where the educational system only really teaches them about their country. And a lot of the citizens do not know much about what's happening outside of their own borders. But in Canada, the culture was always to be a global citizen. And certainly coming from the environment that I came from, we were always taught that the responsible citizen is informed and that you should always keep an eye on what's going on around you as well as in the greater world. And that really helps too when it comes to voting, because it is not helpful for a country to have its citizens go in and vote with being from an ignorant point of view. Somebody who only votes for a particular party because that's the party their family has always voted for and that's what they're always going to vote for is not helpful. Our citizens need to be informed of the issues and where everybody stands on those issues so that every time they go in and vote, they can make an informed choice. So I do my best to stay on top of the news. I'd like to know what's happening not only internationally, but also, within the country. But I'm also so aware that there is such a bias that I end up watching from a variety of different sources. And I end up just consuming too much news. That didn't used to be too much of a problem when I was working full time, because between my demanding career and all of the other things that I had in place in my life, I didn't have that much time to read that much news or to watch that much news. I did the best I could to stay on top of things, but I did not have hours a day I could dedicate to it. The problem with retirement is that even though I have kind of a loose structure in my mind of how I want my week to unfold, and I have a few things booked in or committed to throughout the week, a lot of the things that I plan to do for my week are really just a commitment to myself. And if I decide not to do it, I don't let anybody else down. And so as a result, it is very easy to end up bumping things because time went by. I spent too much time on my laptop, and before I knew it, my window of opportunity for attending a particular exercise class or going out and running errands before the store got busy or whatever, it passed, but that's no big deal because I can do it tomorrow. Even me, who has really believed in creating structure in retirement, I still have many, many hours in a week that's really not booked in for anything specific. And I have discovered that I am just gravitating to my laptop repeatedly throughout the day. So I'm going to need to change things up. Now, as I Googled it, ways to stop doom scrolling, one of the first things that almost every website says is to just create a time limit for yourself for how long you're going to be on a device. Yeah, that's not going to work for me. It just doesn't. I don't know why. I don't know the psychology behind it. Maybe it's because I spend a lot of time on my phone, not particularly looking at it, but I'm either playing music, I'm playing an audiobook as I go out and do my errands, or when I work out at the gym, I've got a podcast going on my phone. So my phone will typically tell me I have a large number of hours that I've been on it, but I know in my head, I'm not actually really on it. I'm doing what I would normally do in my day, but I'm also listening. The real issue for me isn't really a lack of willpower. What I think it is that the doom scrolling has kind of replaced the unstructured moments. It's just so easy to slide in checking out the news when I have a free few moments. The other thing is, in a weird way, it's like when I interact with people online by watching interviews or by watching, people report on certain news stories. In a weird way, my mind feels like it's interacting with human beings. So I live alone. So if I am not opening up a laptop or a phone and hearing what other people are thinking. I'm just functioning within my own world, my own thoughts, my own ideas, and not getting informed in any way. The only way for me to interact with people is to either leave my house, make phone calls with people, or watch videos online. So it's kind of weird because I don't think it's that great a replacement, but I do feel like living alone and almost directs me toward getting onto social media in order to get that connectedness that we all crave with other human beings. So I think first and foremost, I'm going to set a new way of looking at things so that I'm going to change the way I consume my news in order to get rid of this doom scrolling. So right now I have 2 apps on my phone for news. So at any time during the day or night, even in the middle of the night, if I wake up and I'm wide awake for some reason, I can tap on either one of those apps and I already have the top 12 news stories. So I've deleted those 2 apps. Effective first thing this morning, I deleted them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the way it used to be 30 years ago. When we got the news, it was just you had to sit down and turn on the news channel, and there was either the 12 o'clock noon news. I was never around for that. I was always working. Or there was the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news. And if you already saw the 6 o'clock news, there'd be no reason to watch the 11 o'clock news because it was the exact same show. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to only check in on the news at 6 p.m. I'm going to watch the news while I eat my dinner. I'm going to just select one news source, and I'm only going to get my news from that source. Now, of course, there's a danger in that. If you are getting your news from a very biased source, and that's the only place you're getting your news, that's going to be problematic. So in the past, I have gotten my news from 6 or 7 different sources. That way I can listen to what the left are saying, what the right are saying, what Canadian news sources are saying, and what international news sources are saying about any given news story. Because now I'm only going down to one source, it means that I'm going to have to be very careful what news outlet I am using. So there are 3 or 4 websites online where they rank the news sources around the world for their bias and how reliable their information is and how centered the information is as opposed to either a light left or right leaning information or more extreme right or left leaning information. So I'm going to have to pick my news outlet based on trying to get as unbiased as possible. These 3 websites that will tell you about the biases of all media are going to be listed just below here in this video. And I will also put the links down below in the information section, in the description section. So I'm going to pick, based on my reading of those from those 3 websites, it seems that the common 2 outlets that came up were Reuters and BBC News. So I'm going to start with Reuters. I'll do Reuters for a month, where that's the only place I'm getting my news from. And I will then switch to BBC News and do that for a month and see how I feel about it. The third strategy is to put in place a silver lining, meaning that I need to always build into my consumption of news something positive. Now, I know the algorithm isn't going to feed me anything positive, so it means that I'm actually going to have to go out and seek it. So my new rule is if I consume 3 news stories in a row that are negative, I need to break from that cycle and actually seek out something positive. So that will likely mean that I'm looking at something either nature related or science related, some new breakthrough in science, something like that, in order to break the negative news cycle. The 4th strategy that I plan to use is to have an after watching the news plan. I've never had an after plan. So, I sit down with no idea in mind for how long I'm going to consume the news. And I also have no very specific idea in mind of what I'm going to do immediately following that. So after I've consumed my half an hour of news a day from 6 to 6:30 p.m., I need to get up, change location, and do some other activity that is not tech related. Something physical that will break me from my routine of sitting in front of the tech. I think that will also change if you're starting to think on a negative cycle. It will break that neurological loop that you might be stuck in that night. The next strategy that I'm going to use is a mental reframe. So once I've started to listen to a news story, I'm going to ask myself, is this information helpful for me to know? Is there anything actionable I can take out? Is there anything I can use this information for in my life? And if it isn't useful knowledge for me to have, or if it's something like a storyline that is rapidly changing, and so they don't have all the facts yet, and I know that this story will run for many days and it will have different versions in it as they gain more information, then I'm just going to stop and move, and I'm going to move on to some other news. It is just inflicting stress on me for no good reason. The other part of the mental reframe is whatever the news is telling me, I'm going to ask myself, am I experiencing that in my own world? And if I am not experiencing that in my own world, then I am going to, at this time, focus on just my own world. So even though it is important to understand and know what is happening around the world, I don't need to experience in real time everybody's suffering around the world. I know that the people in my world around me, they all might vote a different way than I do. But I also know that they're really decent human beings. I have seen kindness and care and concern among my neighbors, and it doesn't matter whether or not they vote for one party and I vote for another. I am not falling into the whole identity politics that seems to be occurring throughout the media. The next strategy that I'm going to use is I'm going to try to build more rituals into my day that will define the structure of my day. As much as I like to not have my day 100% structure, I am going to set some rituals in place, kind of anchors or pillars that, move me through my day on a daily basis that will help me to keep moving forward and hopefully prevent me from losing a lot of hours in the morning where I thought I was just going to check the computer for half an hour and instead look up and I've lost half my morning. One suggestion that I know a lot of people follow is to end up having a no phone after such and such a time. I think I might try that too. After dinner, just put my phone in another room. I'll still have the volume on if somebody needs to call me. But I think I'll let my family know that I'm probably not going to be looking at my phone. And I'll try to restrict my checking in on the phone every evening. And on top of that, I've read many people suggest turning your phone to grayscale in the evening because everything is a little harder to read and a lot less pleasant to watch. The next strategy is to try to find ways to replace the dopamine because the studies show that it is actually the dopamine that a lot of people are getting by watching all of these emotional, exaggerated news stories that use highly inflated vocabulary to tap into either your fear or your outrage responses. And you're actually getting a dopamine hit by having these emotional ups and downs viewing all of this media. So what they suggest is that you find ways to replace that dopamine hit that your body has now been trained to desire. And so ways to replace dopamine: going out in nature, playing with your pet, engaging in things that are arts related. So, engaging in creative activities or taking up some hobbies that are artistic in nature, playing an instrument, singing, just listening to music, just tapping into the arts in some way is apparently a provider of dopamine. As well, making sure that your food is, your diet is balanced. You're getting lots of protein and whole grains. You're getting daily exercise as well as having a social connection. And then they also recommend meditation or mindfulness practices too. Retirement was supposed to be meant as a chapter in your life that is relaxed, free from structure and obligation, and super enjoyable. And it is. It can be. But it also does open the door to having a lot of downtime, a lot less structure, and opens the door to more anxiety feeds if you end up using your devices a lot. So I am switching to only music channels. So in short, small structure to your day, intentional consumption, physical movement, transitions, those three things will be the tools that I use to try to get rid of the doom scrolling. Thanks for visiting with me today. I hope you found this helpful. If it resonated with you at all, I would love for you to share in the comments what strategies you've used to get yourself to stop doom scrolling as much. I'd love to have you join our community at Solo and Candid Musings from Midlife. So hit subscribe if you would like to, and watch one of my other videos. Maybe I talk about a lot of different topics, all of the things we experience in this age over 50, as well as for some who are living on their own. There are videos that relate to solo life in Canada as well. So please check out the other videos and like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.